Harshil, since Razorpay started pushing AI adoption across teams, right? It's been a few months now. I'm curious to know if you've noticed a shift in who's outperforming, right? Are the people moving up the fastest today the ones you would have expected a year ago?
I think generally I've seen, let me talk about, let's say, engineering, but it applies equally to everyone. Uh, some of the best people in the teams have been slower to adopt AI. The mediocre or poor performers have been faster to adopt, and the reason is it's just human nature. Like people who are really good at what they do, they feel like, hey, no AI can do my job better than what I do. But people who are generally on the mediocre side are generally because like a lot of people on that side are lazy. So they're saying, hey, if AI can do my job, why should I spend my time doing it? The outcome of that is that a lot of mediocre people are becoming as good or better than the best performers because of them using AI. And that's just shifting.
Okay, so who would be considered a top performer at Razorpay today? Has that definition changed for you?
Yeah, so it's hard to say, right? Like a mediocre performer with AI is better than a top performer without AI, right? Of course, our top performer, if they start using AI, then they are still ahead, right? So it's like that. Of course, they're exceptional, but that's a general view of things. So see, because AI is such a massive delta that you can't fight it with hard work. You can't say, hey, that person uses AI, but I'm smarter, so I'll still do better. Like that doesn't happen. So, and that's one of the core things that I am doing is, and I'm pushing my leadership is go out and explain to people that AI is not an option, unlike other things. So it is optional to work hard. You could be smarter and you could still do the same job. It's optional to be smart. You could be you could have a lower IQ, but you could work harder and prove yourself better. But AI is not an option.
Across industries, artificial intelligence is no longer an experiment. It's policy. While many companies thought riding the AI wave meant building tools for customers, they're now realizing it goes way deeper than that. It's not just about what they build, it's now about how they work. So they're choosing to turn inwards, they're investing in their workforce. Because if employees can't keep up, companies don't stand a chance of staying ahead. You just heard a snippet from my conversation with Harshil Mathur. He's the co-founder and CEO of the fintech firm Razorpay. For the past few months, Harshil's approach has been simple. Give employees access to AI tools. Let them experiment. Let them fail. And Razorpay isn't alone, of course. Across the board, companies have been investing in AI infrastructure for their teams. But with that access and freedom come expectations. Expectations to work smarter, to move faster, to think more creatively. Now, what does that actually look like in practice? And how does it feel on the ground? In this episode, we hear from the people driving this shift at the top and the people adapting to it across teams. I'm Rahil Philippos, and this is 90,000 Hours, a show about our time at work and the big shifts reshaping how we build our careers. Okay, full disclosure, I've been using AI for a few months now. I think my first real encounter with ChatGPT was back in March. 90,000 Hours, the podcast that you're currently listening to, was just an idea back then, and there was a lot to figure out. What was this show going to be? Who was it for? What was this big question that I was trying to answer? Like a lot of people facing something new and overwhelming, I felt in over my head. But I knew I needed to do something. So I wrote to a founder I really looked up to. Without giving too much away, think makeup, think Shark Tank. Now, I didn't have a lot to go on, right? I was inviting her to be on a podcast that didn't even exist yet. And that's a really hard email to write. So, like most people, my first real use of AI was for just that, writing an email. And after that, well, there was no looking back. AI became my go-to research assistant. But here's the thing, while it made me feel wildly productive, It also made me anxious, insecure, kind of confused. Turns out I'm not the only one. In May, my colleague Arundhati Ramanathan, the Ken's deputy editor, wanted to understand how employees in India were using AI, what impact it had on their workflow, and how they were feeling about it.
As I saw more chatter about how CEOs are mandating that everybody starts using AI, and that kind of got me thinking that there is possibly something here. And the more sources I kept meeting for my regular reporting, they would talk about how this is the language of work.
For her story, Arundhati ended up surveying nearly 500 employees across entry, mid, and senior level positions.
My hypothesis was that the tech workforce, be it engineers and software developers, etc., would be at the forefront leading this, and they would have adopted it most, was my hypothesis.
But the responses didn't quite match, or did they?
No, I was actually pleasantly surprised. We had almost 500 responses in the survey that we did across companies, seniority. And it was actually I think the split was even between the non-tech workforce and the tech workforce adopting AI. And so much so that, that for many of these people, the company was not even making AI tools available, and they were spending their own dime on it, and still they were using it. So it kind of showed that AI is seeping deep into the psyche of employees, right? I think that's what I gathered from the survey.
9 out of 10 respondents said they had begun using AI tools, even if it meant paying for them out of pocket. But from her reporting, Arundhati found that a lot of unicorn startups, the likes of Razorpay, payments firm PhonePe, discount broker Zerodha, used car marketplace Cars24, even home interior solutions company HomeLane, had all taken up enterprise licenses for generative AI tools. And employees, in turn, have been using these tools for a lot more than just sending out emails.
I think it starts there, like, let me use it to synthesize content. Let me use it to spin up a presentation. It starts there. But I felt like the non-tech people who used it well had a clear understanding of the business problem that they want to solve using that. And they got there's a lot of collaboration here, right? Because you have a business problem, but you don't know necessarily how to use AI to solve it. So you work, like, for instance, I think PhonePe had set up this. There was a core team, AI team, which kind of worked with employees to make sure that they're addressing the right problem and things like that. So different companies are playing around with different approaches as to helping the non-tech workforce.
There's an interesting predicament arising in the process. Arundhati puts it well. She says AI is becoming a lot like the hammer, and problems are starting to look a lot like nails. One survey respondent put it as, everybody just seems to be focused on solving problems using AI rather than actually solving problems. In fact, Kailash Nath, the CTO of Zerodha, said that in many organizations, whether or not you use AI will soon become the measure of performance. Arundhati believes that mindset could end up backfiring. Because when everyone is trying to prove that they're using AI, you risk ending up with more tools than you can manage and not enough clarity on what actually needs solving. There's something deeper going on here too. Because when everyone has access to the same powerful tools, when AI levels the playing field across experience and seniority, it quietly begins to shift something else: hierarchy.
It will change hierarchies going forward, and that's something that we should, as the Ken's newsroom, keep tabs on, right? Like a year or two, that'll start showing very tangible impact. Because what's happening is that junior people don't have to rely on seniors for the experience, because that is all available via AI now. That what the questions that they needed to go to their seniors for to have addressed is now workable with AI. That understanding comes naturally with AI. Similarly, at the senior level, tasks that they would assign to the juniors, and they're depending on the juniors' bandwidth, etc. Now they can do it, whip it up themselves. We know that at the entry level is where things are going to get disintermediated the most. But it's interesting that it's at the junior level where tech AI adoption is also at its highest. That's what I gathered from my reporting. So that's happening at the junior level. And at the senior level, the business problems, the business realities, you can see what AI will do to business. So it's like almost a race to who will disintermediate whom the fastest. So you can't say that my job is safe, irrespective of the level or seniority or experience, right? It kind of brings everyone to that base level.
Right now, the pressure is off. Most companies aren't breathing down their employees' necks about using AI. But that may not last. Because when you invest in AI infrastructure and in every single employee, expectations tend to follow, targets tend to follow. And that raises the question, what does performance look like in a world where using AI becomes the norm, not the edge? To understand how that's playing out inside one of India's biggest fintechs, I spoke to Harshil Mathur, the co-founder and CEO of Razorpay. Hey, I'm briefly pausing this episode for a quick announcement. I want to hear from you. What's one AI tool that's genuinely helped you at work? Something that's made you faster, clearer, or just a little less overwhelmed? I'm crowdsourcing a list of actually useful AI tools, and I'll be featuring your responses in my newsletter next week. Yeah, that is also something that I'm doing now. You can find it on the Ken app or on our website. There's a form in the show notes. Go ahead and drop in your favorite tool. I would love to include your take. All right, back to the episode. AI at work isn't just about fancy tools or tech upgrades. It's about changing how teams think, operate, and make decisions. And few companies have leaned into this shift as deliberately as Razorpay. To understand what this transformation looks like on the ground, from workflows to mindset to hiring, I spoke with Harshil Mathur. Under Harshil's leadership, the company has been rethinking what it means to adopt AI, not just for engineers, but for teams across the org, from operations to legal to marketing. Here's our conversation. Harshil, I want to start with the moment that shift happened for you, right? What made you start thinking that, you know what, everyone needs to be using AI? Was there a specific aha moment for you?
I think the biggest changing point was not ChatGPT for me. I think ChatGPT came in and I think we could see how it comes in, and I started using it personally, started seeing a lot of people use it for day to day. But I think biggest delta for me came in when I tried using these no-code prototyping tools like Replit, Lovable, Bolt, and others. Our internal team started using Cursor for coding. They started with GitHub Copilot, then moved to Cursor. And when I started trying some of these tools, that's when really it felt like, okay, the world probably has changed. Because you could see that while at least when I first tried it, something like Replit, like I think a couple of months back, I even tweeted about it, that it felt like that the way product companies run is going to massively change. And it's a matter of time now. Of course, these tools were early and could do basic prototyping stuff, but you could see where the technology is headed and how the way product development works is going to fundamentally change because of tech like that. And that's when I started speaking to our leadership and see, hey, how can we be early in that trend? Because it's going to be a massive efficiency driver.
Yeah, I mean, you've been pretty vocal about this on LinkedIn as well, right? In fact, 3 months ago, I saw a post you shared where you said something pretty interesting. You said, we've reached a point where AI fluency is now table stakes. I want to understand what that means in practice at Razorpay. Like, are there tools that employees have built that maybe you're using internally now?
Yeah. For example, and not just internally, even publicly. For example, we launched a partnership dashboard, which is listing of all partners that can work on top of Razorpay. We always wanted to do that, but like it's some of these small, tiny projects generally don't get breathing space because they're always larger projects in play. Like one single PM built it in a day and deployed it, and of course we ran through our security process and everything, and then made it available to people. And it runs end to end, like no engineering, no dev work. Typically, it would have taken 2 or 3 weeks of time, like maybe one sprint to build with one pod. One PM could build it in a day now. So those are like a lot of these smaller things, and that's where the power of AI is today. Like a lot of these smaller things that take limited amount of bandwidth are generally just very hard to prioritize in a large organization like ours, because there's always bigger projects, larger things, and you keep missing out on smaller things that you could do to improve efficiency. It's just easy with AI. We launched internally a cards multiplier. Internally we have a Slack bot now for HR policies and legal policies. So all legal documents, the first review is done by an AI bot, which identifies any missing gaps generally. And similarly, when HR, typically people will have a lot of questions every day. Hey, how can I do this? How can I do that? Like there is an HR bot now, which answers most of your first level queries, and only second level goes to the HR team. And this is something that the HR team built and deployed themselves. So it's massive in terms of smaller use cases that you can solve today. And those use cases are going to get bigger and better from here.
Right, that's interesting. But does that mean that we'll start redefining jobs themselves? Like, will an HR manager, for instance, in 2026 need to have a completely different skill set than one in, say, 2022?
So see, it is how you read it, right? Like if you think of the HR bot, right? Like there was somebody's job to answer these HR queries in the company, right? So if you put it that way, the HR bot has taken away their job. But have they lost their job? No, they are doing better stuff. Like it's nobody becomes an HR to answer basic queries every day. In like how do I get a loan advance? How do I get a cash advance? They do it because somebody has to do it, but nobody really likes doing that. So yeah, AI is taking away the jobs that humans anyways didn't want to do. And I think that's not the best use of human intelligence to do these things. I would expect my HR to solve complex problems. If somebody asks a complex question, hey, how I'm suffering from some painful treatment, can you make an exception to the policy for me? Like those are the things that my HR team should manage, not how do I get a 2 months loan advance. It's available in documents. People generally want to ask this question, and HR bot can answer that very simply.
Razorpay didn't launch its AI transformation with a big bang. It started small, with experiments in HR. When those worked, leadership brought all teams together and asked a simple question. What can AI help you do better? From there, 2 tracks emerged. One, top-down, where specific teams were asked to reimagine parts of their work with AI, like onboarding or customer support. Those were non-negotiable pushes. The second track was bottom-up. Every employee, from engineers to legal representatives to those in ops, they were given access to tools like Gemini, Copilot, and Cursor. If they found value, they could scale it up. If they needed support, they could ask for that support. Now, this twin-track model, structured from the top, exploratory at the bottom, is how Razorpay is rolling out AI across the organization. And there is clear momentum. But, of course, companies do have targets in mind. Arundhati, for instance, learned that PhonePe expects all 7,000 of its employees to be able to automate for accuracy by the end of the year. They're expected to have a faster turnaround time in 30 to 40% of the work done by different functions. Or in the case of HomeLane, founder CEO Shrikant Iyer told Arundhati that he expects a 15 to 20% increase in efficiency across teams within the year. Harshil too is expecting a 30% bump in Razorpay's output.
I think we're still not there in terms of fully figuring out how do you around it. I think the way we measure it is in terms of outcomes still, which is if your outcomes are better, like at the end of the day, outcomes matter for most like fast-moving startups. So if your outcomes are good enough, like we measure there. So if somebody is using AI and getting to those outcomes faster, right, like they are automatically rewarded because you reward on outcomes. If somebody is not using AI and taking a lot more time, or somebody is not using AI but maybe putting a lot more hours or a lot more time or a lot more effort and still able to get to the same outcome, which I don't think is possible, but maybe they are, then you still get rewarded the same way. So we measure and reward on outcomes today. AI is an input metric, and at some point we'll reach where we'll start measuring this input metric itself, but we're not fully reached there. So there's some proxy metrics. For example, we can track Gemini usage, we can track Cursor usage, we can track how many people are using it, we can track, but those right now are used to give feedback. So we're using it to give feedback to people that, hey, we're seeing that you're doing great work, but you're not using AI to the best of its capability. Like, so it's being used as a review mechanism and feedback mechanism right now. Maybe at some point we'll reach a point where we'll start using it as a primary outcome mechanism itself, like the input itself becomes the core criteria. But I don't think we're fully there yet. I think today outcomes are sufficient to measure that.
Okay, what's something that Razorpay will absolutely not use AI for? right? Have those hard lines kind of changed for you personally in the last year or so?
Yeah, so I think we are still not at a place where we are taking the human completely out of loop. Anywhere where there is where there is either uh, a compliance, security, regulatory, information security, any of these concerns, like we are not taking AI out, human out of the loop on those stages. So, for example, like customer support, uh, we allow AI to answer most queries. A lot of times, the customer who asks to change something, right? Like the customer say, "Hey, can you enable this method? Can you do something like this?" The AI plays a maker. In our terminology, we use maker checker. So AI can be a maker, but not the checker for things. So AI can give an input that, hey, like let's do this, but we'll always have a human in the loop to do the checking. And I'll give you an example of where this worked well. We had customer support, and AI was answering queries, and the customer got frustrated and said, "Just delete my account. I don't want to use Razorpay." AI created a request to suspend the account, because like a human would never do that. Like you don't lose your customer, right? A human would always say, "Hey, what can we do better?" And but AI couldn't guess that, and maybe of course it's still early days of AI. Maybe we'll have better AI tomorrow, which can actually get to that point, but today we don't. So the AI took an action to initiate suspension and said, "Okay, thank you. We have initiated suspension for your account." Of course, the customer was even more pissed. But thankfully, we had a checker, so the customer account didn't really get suspended. A human checker picked it up, called up the customer, said, "Okay, we'll apologize and we'll fix it," and all of that. But so I think we are not at a point where AI can we can allow AI to take decisions end to end. So any decisioning where an action is going to be taken, we're still putting a human in the loop.
At Razorpay, teams recently ran an internal AI hackathon. This wasn't one for developers, but instead it was for people across HR, legal, marketing, finance, consumer success, even operations. The goal? To get leadership from every team thinking like builders.
The winning project was, I think somebody from our marketing team a, built a product to pick up and answer calls end to end for customers. And it, like, you can imagine somebody from marketing team who built it. Like, that's the power of AI. They used Google AI Studio and a bunch of other tools to connect it all together, where somebody calls about some issue with Razorpay, and you could end to end answer that using AI.
The Kent survey found that employees are hyper aware of the fact that they need to step up. But a lot of them feel like they don't have the clarity on what exactly they're expected to build. Just about half of those surveyed were able to definitively say that they were expected to deliver better outcomes using AI. But that said, the non tech workforce at a lot of these organizations have been finding unexpected use cases for AI. Just take Ashwat Sachin, for instance. He joined Zerodha in 2021 as part of the customer support team. He didn't come from a technical background, but after moving into a business analyst role, that started to change. He now works with huge amounts of data, far too large to scroll through in spreadsheets. So he taught himself how to write basic code, to search, filter, and make sense of all of it. Then he discovered Claude.
So what we do is we help our other teams, try to eliminate their manual process. So they do, certain processes that will probably go into hours, right? If they do it manually. So initially, our team, we were trying to help them automate those things using a Python script. So for that, we majorly relied on ChatGPT and Claude. So that was the use case. We never, before those teams used to reach out to our tech folks. Before this is before the GPT era, right? So they reach out to tech folks, and tech folks they will have a lot of other things to do as well, but they have to allocate their bandwidth to these individual tasks, right? They will provide the Python script, and which will be executed by the team. But later, when we got our hands on Claude GPTs, we were able to prompt it and we were able to generate the code, which was used by the other teams.
Then came the accounting problem. As a broking app, Zerodha manages thousands of fixed deposits across banks. Its accounting team maintained an inventory of all FDs on spreadsheets. That meant constant monitoring of which FDs matured and which ones to break with the least fine, almost every single day. a repetitive task that ate up hours every month. Instead of raising a tech ticket, Ashwath decided to solve it himself with Claude's help. The result? A simple internal tool that's now used by Zerodha's entire accounting team.
And since this is a very specific internal use case, this wasn't really a priority for our team. So what happens is, it was, I believe, February end, Anthropic, Claude, right? So they have released this model called Sonnet 3.7. So that time it was their latest model, and it was really good at writing code, right? So I was just experimenting with that. I was just trying to build some internal tool, but with a decent front end. Until then, we were writing Python scripts, which we will execute from the terminal, which is not user friendly. But after the Claude introduced 3.7, and it really good at writing codes, so we were just experimenting with it. Ended up building a small internal tool with a decent front end.
Ashwath said that the hardest part in building the app was not knowing when something broke. He started by dumping all the code into Claude and asking it to proofread. But he eventually realized that that may not be the most efficient way.
We started as an experiment. We thought it might not work because you completely prompt it, and AI is your tech folk, right? AI is your developer, and you can't rely much on it, is what we thought. But it really worked out well.
Across companies like Razorpay and Zerodha, AI isn't just a top-down directive anymore. It's slowly becoming a tool in the hands of people who don't come from traditional tech backgrounds but are learning to build anyway. That shift isn't always smooth. Many employees still aren't unsure what exactly is expected of them, and many of their experiments end up failing. But what's clear is this: AI is reshaping how work gets done, not through grand strategy decks, but through small, often invisible decisions made by people like Ashwath, people who are willing to take the leap and try something new.